What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here coming back at y'all with another episode. And we had the conclusion to the 2021 FCS season. This past weekend as North Dakota State defeated Montana State 38-10 in Frisco to win their ninth FCS title since 2011. And the dynasty continues, the domination continues as this program, the sustained level of success, the sustained level of dominance between coaches throughout player I guess movement between the years, contenders coming and going has been just amazing to watch. And as a college football fan, as much as your team may have fallen victim to North Dakota State, it is still just something that I think everyone as college football fans, as sports fans, has to appreciate, because they only come around once in a lifetime, really and truly. And the way North Dakota State has dominated year in and year out in one of the toughest divisions in FCS football has been spectacular. And like I said, this has been across coaches who have went to different locations, like Chris Kleiman going to Kansas State, different players coming in from Carson Wentz to Trey Lance to Cam Miller this weekend, Hunter Lipke winning MVP. It doesn't matter. North Dakota State has a system and just a factory in place. And you hear that word used a lot with Alabama. Well, North Dakota State has the factory of all factories as they continue their domination. But let's get to the big takeaways. And the biggest takeaway I think we saw was just the physicality of North Dakota State. A lot of people thought Montana State was going to have the defense to really slow down this physical rushing attack of the Bison, and 380 yards, over 7 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns on the ground later. It was clear North Dakota State, their offensive line, established themselves early and often in this game. And Montana State, even though they had Troy Anderson, Daniel Hardy, all these great defenders, they had no answer for the rushing attack, whether it was Kobe Johnson, Quincy Patterson, Hunter Lipke, Tamarick Williams, Cam Miller. It did not matter. They were able to run the football at just a staggering at a staggering production level. And it was through the A gaps, through the B gaps, and then it was right down Montana State's throat. And all playoffs, I've been saying the key to beating North Dakota State is having to be physical up front. You cannot allow them to establish themselves as dominant. And it was clear early on that Montana State just didn't have it, and the wind was taken out of their sails when Tommy Mellott goes down with injury. But the defense just looked like they didn't have any answer. And of course, man, can I say enough about Hunter Lipke? What he's done, and I just want to pinpoint the James Madison game and this championship game. What he's done these past two games has been exceptional, and Hunter Lipke deserves a lot of credit. And you could just see the energy that he runs with, the power, the anger that he runs with, and it's just contagious, man. And even though you might not be a North Dakota State fan, I had people texting me, who is that? Who they call him a full? Who is that fullback that is just running through people? And I got a call from a parent of another player at another FCS university, and he said the quintessential thing he noticed about Lipke was you could tell he could have taken it in the end zone on one of his touchdown runs, and instead of just running it into the end zone, he turned upfield and made contact with the safety just because. He seeks out contact. He's not afraid of it, and he knows when he seeks out that contact that he's going to win the contact, and he is not afraid to run through your face. And he is a linebacker playing running back. Hunter Lipke is a player that I cannot wait to watch moving forward. This kid really and truly over these past 2 weeks should be credited a lot with what North Dakota State accomplished. And also on top of that, shout out to Quincy Patterson, Kobe Johnson. Kobe Johnson, 106 yards rushing, a touchdown, had that explosive 76-yard run. And Quincy Patterson, 98 yards rushing, almost 9 yards per carry. And I do want to say this about Quincy Patterson. I know people really seem to overlook this, probably not maybe in Fargo, but in terms of national media for FCS, no one really talked about he kept his mindset in check. Even when he was supposed to be coming in as a starting quarterback, Quincy Patterson was the next great North Dakota State quarterback. When Cam Miller took over, Quincy Patterson never shot away from his role. He said, okay, I don't have this QB1 role. Where can I find my place to make an impact for North Dakota State? And I give him a lot of credit, especially in the age of the transfer portal, especially in the age where you see a lot of players get down on themselves when they lose that spot. He was the quintessential team player, and where he said, okay, I'm going to do what I can to help this team win. And you saw it come into this great performance that he had in the national championship, and he played his role so well. So I want to give Quincy Patterson a lot of credit for that as well. But this game was defined by physicality at the line of scrimmage. The defensive line for North Dakota State was too physical, too fast, too just everything for Montana State front. They just did not have an answer, and the secondary played well along with that, even though I know Malott went out with injury, and it was like, a third-string quarterback with Rovig in there. But for me, North Dakota State showed why they just have the dynasty that they do. They're bigger than you. They're going to be more physical than you, and they just execute at such a high level, and they don't make mistakes. And that's the number one thing you have to do in a national championship is not make mistakes. And also, let me just say this. You could tell Christian Watson coming back at that wide receiver spot was huge for North Dakota State. 4 catches, 61 yards. They're not really a pass-first team, but you could just tell the energy he brought. And when Cam Miller did back up, Christian Watson was the first guy he looked toward. Christian Watson coming back was a huge energy boost for North Dakota State as they put up over 506 yards of total offense. No turnovers, held the ball for almost 34 minutes, and was 8 for 13 on third downs just because they were running the ball so effectively. I mean, they were, as a team, averaging over 7 yards per carry. All they had to do was keep that pace up, and there was nothing Montana State could have done. Now, for what went wrong for Montana State, it was clear. And I was watching with some people who really didn't pay a lot of attention to FCS football. As soon as Malott went down, I said that it was probably a wrap. Malott has been the driving force for this team all through the playoffs. As soon as McKay transferred, as soon as Malott stepped in, you look at the Sam Houston game, you look at last week against South Dakota State, he has been the heart and soul of this team. And him going down early really took all the wind out of Montana State sails because they were driving. They probably put 7 up on the board if Malott does not get hurt early in that game. So I think Tommy Malott's injury, man, I know I hate blaming injuries, and I'm not taking anything away from North Dakota State, and they probably still win, but it's not 38-10 if Tommy Malott's in the game. And I think there's a lot of fans who believe that on both sides. And I really want to say, just as an analyst who's been covering FCS this year, man, prayers and everything up to Tommy Malott. Quick recovery. That kid has a bright, bright future in it. And moving forward, Montana State has a potential superstar in Tommy Malott at whatever position he plays, running back, quarterback, wherever they want to put him, because that kid is electric. But Tucker Rovig played a solid game, 156, a touchdown, a pick with 51 yards rushing, but it just wasn't enough. They didn't have that explosiveness that they needed to beat North Dakota State. They could drive the field slowly, but they never had that big play ability without Malott in the game. Isaiah Afonso came in. I had multiple people text me about how this kid could have an NFL future. He looked legit, but Isaiah Afonso is just coming off an injury. He couldn't do it alone. Lance McCutcheon had a solid game, 106 yards, a touchdown, over 21 yards per catch. But with Malott going down, they just, like I said, didn't have that big play threat. And when you have North Dakota State just running it down your throat, getting big chunk yardage, big chunk touchdowns like that one 76-yard touchdown run they allowed, you have to generate some explosive plays of your own. And that's one thing that North Dakota State's defense does so well, is limit the big plays. And they did it. They did it this weekend, and it was a dominating performance all around. But I do think what went wrong for Montana State was ultimately Malott's injury taking the wind out of the sails, and the defense just being on the field too long. You could tell that they were getting worn down because it would be a long touchdown drive where they was just physical, dominating rushing attack by the Bison. And then Montana State would go out there, have a quick 3-and-out or a turnover, and then North Dakota State would get the ball right back. And the defense just didn't have the depth to handle those type of problems this weekend in Frisco. Now, Is this the greatest dynasty of all time? And listen, I know it's at the FCS level, and some of the FBS people are going to be like, "No, you can't give this the greatest dynasty of all time." But in my opinion, in college sports at least, this has to rank top two, top three, and if not the greatest. I mean, 9 FCS national championships in 11 years. And I mean, and the thing is not, I'll give it above, that even the pro dynasties, because a lot of the pro dynasties, they had one player that was there for the entire stretch. They had one coach like Bill Belichick with the Patriots that was there for the entire stretch. North Dakota State's done this with different coaches, different players, and just also different opponents in the playoffs, and also different contenders emerging and reemerging in the run. So for me, I absolutely think this has to be one of the greatest dynasties. It has to be right up there with the Alabama dynasty, right up there with any other dynasty you want to put it up there with. But for me, I think this has an absolute strong argument for one of the greatest dynasties of all time, especially if they can get 10 next year. 10 and 12 years would be undeniably the greatest run, in my opinion, in any sports. That has to be the greatest dynasty of all time, in my opinion. And the other question I have before I get out of here, man, can anybody stop North Dakota State? Who is the next team? Because we know James Madison's going to the FBS. We know Sam Houston's going to the FBS. Those are the two programs that have done that have been there and done this. Who is the next team to step up? You look at possibly a South Dakota State, if they can continue developing their program. Can an Eastern Washington replace an Eric Berrier and get there and do it? Can someone come out of the CAA now that James Madison has left? Can someone come from anywhere? Because I really have a lot of worries now with Jacksonville State leaving the ASUN. Who's going to be the team to come out of there that could potentially challenge North Dakota State? So for me, the programs that can stop North Dakota State right now reside in the Big Sky with a Montana State, a Montana, possibly an Eastern Washington, or a team in the Missouri Valley already, possibly like a South Dakota State right now, would probably be my top choice to give them a run for their money. So it was just some of the programs that I would deem the top, I guess, contenders for the firm for North Dakota State. But until somebody can show me the consistency that North Dakota State has over time, I got a feeling we're going to see a lot more national championships coming back home to Fargo, North Dakota. But listen, guys, I appreciate y'all rocking with me all season long for our FCS coverage. Thank you guys so much. Listen, I'm going to try to do a live stream as we recap the entire year, let you guys get on here and express your thoughts on the season. What do you think about the championship, the Walter Payton Award, the Buck Buchanan Award, etc.? We're just going to have a big live stream just to recap the whole year. So stay tuned for that. But thank you guys so much for rocking with me. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. The coverage is not over. Like I said, here on the Bluebloods, it is college football 365, 24/7. So make sure to stay tuned for our off-season content. A lot of big player interviews coming down the pipeline. Darius Hell for Central Arkansas, second place runner-up for the Jerry Rice Award coming on later this week. Also working on getting some of the national champions and the national champion runner-ups from Montana State on the show. So stay tuned for that as well. But guys, thank y'all so much. Hopefully you guys have a great week. But until next time, the Bluebloods are out.